While it's fresh in my mind, I thought I would do a quick video, or as quick as I can make it, about working with migraines, working with chronic pain, working with repression, using third dimension KI. Because there's a huge difference with, say you're just having a regular rough day versus having a migraine. The difference between doing third dimension then and doing it when you've got a migraine it's much different. It's like if you're at sea, in the first case, it's like if you're at sea and it's a little bit rocky and a little bit rough, it's like, okay, I'm just gonna go this way. And it seems like there can be more certainty in going that way because there's not as much fear, there's not as much pain. But in the middle of a turgid, really up and down, fearful experience, it's like, which direction do I actually go? And there's a lot of confusion with the migraine. There's the repression's at its max, the pain's at its max. It's probably at like a 10 out of 10 pain, at least in my case. So I thought I might make this video for people who were doing things solo, because this stuff can be done solo. You don't need a facilitator, although having facilitators and traded sessions and stuff is amazing. But it requires work and it requires a lot of I don't want to say discipline. It's not discipline, but it's it requires work. So first of all, what actually happened? So yesterday I went to, it's called a sacred hape ceremony, which is interesting because I've basically exclusively been doing KI and some meditation and stuff, and I've never done like this group meditation stuff before. But it was basically like you go, you do some breath work, you do some meditation, you do some affirmations, you have an intention, and then you do hape, which is basically like a special kind of tobacco mixed with all these different mild psychoactive herbs, I guess, turned into an ash, and then it's like blown up your nose. And after all the meditation and stuff like that, you have that, and then there's a swim in the waterfall, and then it was a cacao ceremony, and then like sharing at the end of it to top it off. So it was an interesting perspective to have, because when you're doing KI, you can be like, okay, but what about all these other healing modalities? How do they work? How do they fit in with KI? I can tell you right now, after doing the ceremony is extremely powerful, moved a lot of emotion, and I didn't really do much KI. I almost didn't do any KI. I guess the only skill I really utilized when I was going through the motions of the meditations and then the hape, which was much more intense than I thought it was going to be, was just the mind-body Velcro connection, and just kind of realizing that any intense emotion that comes up can be seen, witnessed, and felt and experienced, and there's an innate emptiness to it, that it will pass away, that I can handle it, right? So I'd be going, the hape was much more intense than I thought it was going to be, and so I was like going through all these different emotions with it. Nausea would come up, fear would come up, then a lot of really positive strength would come up, like mentally, like I'm strong, I'm a good person, I can get through this, like not even just like controlling that, but just like viscerally would come up. And so I had this experience where it was like, okay, the last 2 years is being integrated. Now this is like a new beginnings, right? But not so fast. So I got back home, had like 2 or 3 hours of feeling pretty good, started to get exhausted, started to get a migraine. And if you don't have this idea that your anger, repression is causing all of these other symptoms that are completely unrelated to anger, repression, then you won't be able to really dig deep and get through that. It's actually really hard to explain, because first of all, you would have to, I guess, experience a migraine, visceral pain, visceral shutting down, visceral sense of separateness, the pain would go from here, and I could like witness, I could like kind of bring it out after doing so much work with it. I could kind of bring it out and see that there's these thoughts there. Some of it was suicidal thoughts, some of it was anger, some of it was fear, all these other things. But still, right? There's, how do I explain it? Because it was such a long process. I guess like you have to get to a point with the migraine. Slowing things down really works. Getting yourself into a headspace where you can actually clearly do third dimension, because third dimension KI practice is in some ways a concentration practice. Because to be with the thought and the feeling, the sensation clearly, rapid fire that, but also kind of be moving into it, becoming it, requires you to slow things down a fair bit. And that's why like just the old level 1 stuff is important in my experience and in my opinion. So yeah, I'll just talk about like actually how the anger repression manifests and how difficult it can actually be to see that what you are going through is anger repression. So what I was experiencing was psychosomatic pain, like sickness, like my whole body was nauseous, and I was doing an inquiry on like a whole bunch of different things, bringing up parents, and there's fear, and there's like commands like I have to make myself sick to get love and attention, and all that sort of stuff. But there was no anger repression. And I can actually say that after moving through all of it, I'd probably say that the two main repressions seem to be, at least in my case, anger repression and the need for love, which I guess has been covered through KI, but you might say it's connection, but how it's kind of like off the back of utility. Like, what am I getting out of pushing down anger? What am I getting out of these commands that say you have to be sick or to get love? So it's like a repressed need for love and attention. It's probably a fair bit to follow, but basically with the actual rapid firing itself, right, and the migraine, there is going to be a boundary, a limit, which tests you as a person. This is not easy work. It's extremely difficult and extremely painful. The way I see it is like if you've been involved in think of it like a spiritual car crash rather than a physical car crash. In a physical car crash, when you get, like, say you get injured, then you go through the physio process. Maybe you can't walk. Maybe initially you are struggling to breathe and they put you on all these different machines or whatever. And then you have to get up and you have to walk, and there's no easy way around it. You actually have to use those injured muscles and and feel that pain. And it's hard and it's difficult. The same thing is true of pushing through these barriers and these boundaries that happen when there is a migraine of this level of intensity. So I've done this so many times, and even after I've done it so many times, it can still be not obvious to me, because that's, first of all, how repression works. And secondly, just the level and intensity of the pain. You don't want to feel any more pain. You want to shut down. You want everything to be calm. You want everything to be relaxed. But the relaxation is the outcome of fully meeting what has been repressed. And with anger repression, with the kind of anger repression that you get with migraines, at least in my experience, I'll explain what it actually is like. So I'm getting intense waves of nausea. unlike regular nausea. Like if you get nausea, like say you've drank too much alcohol or whatever, it's not like that kind of nausea. It's just so different. It's psychosomatically, it just feels really unpleasant and uncomfortable and unearthly. And so that's going on. There's suicidal thoughts. There's fear. There's contraction, and there's no indication that doing Dimension 3 practice will get you through the other side. It's not intuitive. It's not intuitive at all. And it can even feel like it's going to get worse. And it will get worse at a certain point. And that's the difficulty, because you could start. So what I was doing, I was sitting in my car. I had to pull over because I was just exhausted. And I didn't want to act on any of these thoughts. I don't want to commit suicide. I don't want to do any of these things. And so that's one helpful reminder to have in the background if you are experiencing this. It's like just having that context. It's like, I'm actually being with this in order to work with it. So to me, the signal is, if there are these kind of thoughts there, then that means there's anger repression. And there'll be other psychosomatic things happening on the body that I might have to work through first, but ultimately I'm going towards my primary repression. And mixing fear into that as well. So always digging for fear, always digging for anger when I can, and seeing if there are openings. But sometimes the openings are not going to be just like you're getting a pry bar and just poke around and it opens up. It can sometimes be like, I'm going to bash on this door to get through. That's just what it is like in the level of intensity of the migraines that I was getting. So when I started to rapid fire, I'm angry, bringing up the parents, right? Suddenly the energy shifts into something. Like if the energy shifts into something and it's like, it may be uncomfortable and unpleasant, but like extremely uncomfortable and unpleasant. But if there's a big shift, that's an indicator, because everything else isn't working beforehand, right? Like maybe I'd go for a shower, I'd do some meditation and things would calm down and stuff like that. But there wasn't actually like this big shift in what I was thinking about, and a big experiential shift. So what I found was, like, when I brought up my parents and I went to the anger repression, there was like an intense feeling that came up. It was like, I want to kill. And I was like, oh, initially I was like, I'm going to push this down. I can't. Not a conscious thing, but it just happened really fast. And to me, that was another signal. Okay, I'm going to go with that. So I started rapid firing that, and things got worse. Things did initially get worse. The anxiety kicked up, the horrible, disgusting, migraine-y feelings start to kick up, get worse and worse. The nausea starts to kick up. Bear in mind, so this migraine, a lot of the thoughts there are actually like, it's like as if my nervous system is stuck in the past, trying to get attention from my parents. So it's like, it's a lot of the utility is like, I need attention from my parents. I need to pretend to be sick in order to get attention. This is not, doesn't feel pretend. I don't know. It's so visceral. But, so actually a lot of it is like kind of like this victim, internalized victim. Like I have to push down my anger. I have to pretend to be sick so I can get attention. But anyway, so there's anger down there. So when I'm rapid firing the anger, it's coming up, and it's getting more and more intense. And the waves of sickness can actually get worse. The waves of fear and confusion. You might as well just go, don't stop, this is crazy. What if you act on it? All this sort of stuff. At those times, and this is why Dimension 3 is actually a concentration practice. While I'm rapid firing, I have to get angry. I'm going to kill my parents, or I want to kill my parents. While I'm rapid firing that, there's an intense dark energy that's coming up. Everything's getting more intense around me. And while I'm doing that, I have this context, like, actually, just remember, I'm feeling this in order, not to act on it, but in order to feel it more fully and process it. So as it's coming up, it's getting more and more intense. I'm moving it through the body, And then what happens is those initial words, I want to kill my parents. For me, I'm like sitting there going, okay, I've used it now to get the energy up. I'm going to change that into anger, because anger is really more in the ballpark of it. And it also fits into the context of like, this is not actually what I want to do. So that can kind of be grounding in those moments. If you're like afraid you're going to act on it or whatever, you do that, you bring it in. And like, honestly, just having this little context in the back of your mind is so much more useful. It gives you this sense of like you're in control of everything. So bringing that up, making it more intense, and you might have to rapid fire it for 5-10 minutes. That's how long it takes sometimes. And you might have to keep feeling it. There's a massive wall, at least in the migraines that I experience, that you have to push through, and it's really, really uncomfortable. And for me, what I usually go from is the fear and the anger, from that into the most hidden one, the one that keeps shocking me whenever I find it, is like, I did not expect this, is the repressed need for love and attention. Because the reason the shutdown and the migraine and the I need to pretend to be sick, I need to hurt myself, the reason that is there is kind of like, if you can imagine a kid who feels like they have not been getting love and attention from their parents. It's just like this kind of like, it's like, I'm actually sick. I need attention. I need help. Someone help me, right? It's like that, but your nervous system is like, takes it to be real and now generates a whole system to keep the love and the attention going, which manifests as pushing down all these different parts of you and the visceral pain of migraines or chronic pain. So with the need for love and attention, that's when I'm going, bringing up mum and dad. I don't need, I'm basically doing VI on it actually. It's okay for me to feel and express the need for love and attention. Surprisingly, after doing anger repression work and fear, this is really grounding. More grounding than a lot of the other stuff I've tried. And my theory on that is that is the entire utility, the entire reason that the migraine exists in the first place is I need attention. That's it. So, but I'm afraid of that. So therefore, migraine, repression, suppression. But if I can just process all of that and then move into vulnerability inquiry, like straight to like, I can just go get attention. I don't need to do any of this stuff. I can just go, I need love and attention, and get that in a healthy way, then a lot of the residual feelings seem to drop away afterwards. There's probably some more layers to go through, because afterwards I felt much more calmer, like 90% reduction in symptoms, like, but there's still some residual, and I think maybe there's another layer of something to go, or maybe I have hit the bottom of it, and I just need to keep doing that. But yeah, that's probably, yeah, I think that's about it. But it's really painful to work through migraines, and it's exhausting. But like today, I feel so much clearer, so much better than had I not done third dimension KI. So that's my experiential video.